So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can set up accommodations and exemptions and exceptions within our course and when we might use each of these different areas. So accommodations work really well if we have a specific student that needs a specific accommodation, like a time limit, a different time limit on their tests across all of the assessments in our entire course. This is often the case when we have an accessibility specialist from Accessibility Services reach out to us and say, you have a student in the class and they require time and a half on exams. So we could set up an accommodation for those individuals. An exception could be used if we have a specific assessment and then we have a unique case that goes with it. So maybe a student needs access to it earlier. Maybe they need a different due date on it. Maybe there's going to be a shift in some way for that specific assessment for one or more students in your class. But it's a one-off. This isn't across all assessments throughout the entire semester. In that case, we're going to use an exception. An exemption can be given to a specific student on a specific assessment. Again, it's a one-off. So we take, they wrote 6 quizzes, but there was a specific reason that they couldn't come to the 7th quiz. And we've decided to just void that grade completely, so it's not calculated in their overall grade. In this case, we're going to give them an exemption. So accommodations can be added from 2 different places in your course, either in the gradebook, in the student view, or in the course roster, in the details and actions menu. So you can open the course roster, and at the end of the row for the specific individual, you're going to click the 3 dots and get the drop down, click accommodations. And now I'm going to add a due date accommodation for Corey Carson. When I add an accommodation, we can see the purple flag comes up beside Corey. That's viewable to the instructor, but not viewable to the student. So if we look at a specific quiz that I've set up, in this quiz, I set a due date, which was January 19th, and I said to prohibit late submissions. So we'll take a look at what that looks like for somebody with an accommodation and somebody without. So in this example, I have Corey Carson, who's the person who has the accommodation on the left-hand side, and Lightning McQueen with no accommodation on the right-hand side. So you can see for Lightning McQueen, the item, the quiz comes up red. It shows that it is late and it shows the due date on it. And on the left-hand side with Corey Carson, it's not coming up late. It's not showing red. If Lightning McQueen tries to enter the quiz, it says it's past due. You can't submit work after the due date. You can't make a new submission. And there's no opportunity to click on the attempt. For Corey Carson, he can click on the quiz. There's no details around not being able to submit after the due date, even though the due date still shows past due. It's that time has already gone past. And he can click to start the attempt. I'm going to go back in and set up a time limit accommodation. This time I'll do it through the gradebook. I go into student view and I go down to the student that I want to add the accommodation for. I'm going to click time limit accommodation, and then I can set the extra time that I want. So I want Ada Twist to get 50% extra time on every assessment. So now I can look back at one of the quizzes that I set up that had a specific time limit. So this quiz has 60 minutes. And we'll take a look what that looks like if a student has an accommodation and if they do not. So on the right-hand side, we see Lightning McQueen, and he does not have a time limit accommodation. So he sees 60 minutes with an automatic submission come up. And Ada Twist, who does have a time limit accommodation, is going to see 90 minutes come up instead of 60 minutes. In these cases, I have written in the description that it's a 60-minute test, and that's where Ada would be able to tell she's getting the extra 50%. So the next scenario might be you want to make an adjustment to a specific assessment, one specific time, one case for one or more students. So you can make an exception by going to your gradable items, looking at that specific assignment. So in this case, quiz 1. And then I can go to the end of the row for each of those students and create an exception. And I have options then to change the due date for that specific student and change visibility. So when it becomes available to see and when it's becoming hidden after. And I can also give that individual student multiple attempts. Another case that you might use this outside of quizzes and tests if you have assignments or presentations that happen on different days of the week. So maybe Corey Carson is going to present one week and the next week is going to be Lightning McQueen. So you would go into that specific assessment and alter the due date. So Lightning McQueen would see a different due date than Corey Carson or Rosie Revere. So the final scenario that I'm going to show is how to give an exemption to somebody. So maybe you have multiple quizzes, and in one case you have a reason that one student couldn't complete one of the quizzes, and instead of giving them a makeup, you just decide you're going to exempt that grade completely. So you're going to look at the gradable items, find the quiz that you want to create the exemption for. I'll take Corey Carson, go to the end of the row, and instead of giving him that 0 that you can see is in there as I graded it, I'm going to add an exemption and just exempt that grade for Corey. So to show this, I'm going to show Corey Carson's grade book. So I created a total column that just shows the total of those first 3 quizzes. And we can see that Corey Carson got 20 out of 20 on the first quiz, 16 out of 16 on the second quiz, and 0 out of 3 on quiz 3. So his overall grade out of these 3 assessments is 92.31%. And now looking at his grade book, after adding the exemption, we can see that that 0 out of 3 came out of the calculation, and now he's back up to the 100% because he had full marks on the first 2 assessments. Thanks for watching. Find links to other resources about this topic as well as related videos in the description. You can comment on this video with any questions you have or ideas for future videos.